love, break some energy for my guy, Mr. David Johnston.
Dion's a little tall. I'm David Johnston. I grew up in apparently Emerald City, or I live in Emerald City, Laurel right now. But I really grew up, I was telling my brother, this 6.6 miles downriver from Annapolis. But he draws nautical charts for NOAA, which is the government agency, redrawing the maps for the Baltimore Harbor because of the Key Bridge falling down. But when I told him we grew up 6.6 miles downriver from Annapolis, he said it's actually upriver. And I looked at him and said, up yours. But the first time I ever did comedy was actually here at Nottinghams about 6 months ago. And I'm telling all these car jokes, and there's this group in the back of the room, and I'm trying to land all these jokes, and they didn't laugh at any of them. So when I finished my set with all these car jokes, they called me over, and there were a bunch of used car salesmen. So that's funny in itself. And after that, I went out to Hollywood for the first ever comedy fantasy camp, and Jay Leno was part of the faculty. So I had a bunch of car jokes for him. And when we did our final exam the next night, Jay wasn't there, and I said, I wrote all these jokes to suck up to Jay Leno. Unfortunately for Jay, he wasn't there. Unfortunately for the rest of you were. And he said to bring in some jokes to draw the women into the audience in the beginning of your act. So I came up with a couple of dating jokes, but my dating adventures generally don't end well. They just end prematurely. And I'm blonde, and I have a lot of cousins that are blonde and blue-eyed, grandmother, aunts, so I'm not really attracted to blondes. To leave brunettes or redheads. And I've been burned to ground so badly by redheads and a few brunettes. So that leaves either brunettes or maybe albinos. And there is actually an albinodating.com website. It looks like a bunch of pale white people. But I did a couple of these jokes down in Bethesda. And I don't know if you guys know where Bethesda is. There's North Bethesda, there's Potomac, there's North Potomac, and for some reason, there's no North Anacostia. Yes, you guys get that. And I actually work downtown, and I didn't want to pay for expensive parking, so like a fool, I drive all the way to the Anacostia subway station, okay? Park my car far away from the doors, and it's too far away, let me park it right up at the top of the elevator shaft on the top deck. So when I get back from work, my Volkswagen GTI has been vandalized. It's no longer a GTI, it's just a G. And the guys at work told me, well, there's a rapper named T.I. Okay, and I think T.I. is still alive, isn't he? Okay, so I can go buy his CD when I get back out of this, all right? So my father used to teach public speaking. That's how he worked his way through law school. And he would give me tips when I'd be doing something, and I ran for office down in Laurel a couple cycles ago. But the best speech I ever gave, he never saw it. It was like, I was about third in line to give a speech the next day. It was like 17 minutes, I had about 8 minutes, so kind of like our acts, we put it down and down and down. So this was a pretty good speech, because it's kind of a speech where there were politicians there, they came up to me and after he said, you should run for office. And the reason my dad never saw the best speech I ever gave in my life is because it was the eulogy of his funeral. Which isn't funny itself, but it's sort of funny, okay? And one of these politicians was there, and the best types of politicians are the discredited ones, the disgraceful ones, okay? And there was like Anne Arundel County executive that used to wear a white suit and flash his name. I know that's all he flashed, but he was having sex with women in cars in the Nordstrom parking lot at Annapolis Mall. So I go over to Nordstrom's and find these salesmen and ask, where was he doing this? We need to put a plaque in that parking space. It was lucky for him, and lucky for us. Okay, but now Nordstrom's are closed. I don't know if that's why. So to end this, I have a long story that it takes a long time to get this punchline, but a friend of mine called this, what would be a world without W's, okay? Well, Bill Clinton, not George Clinton. Bill Clinton was president for 8 years. When he was leaving office and George W. Bush was coming in, the White House staff removed all the W's from the keyboards, okay? And so there were no W's. So, and I'm gonna tie this into my story about the first time I learned how to drive a manual transmission car, friends of mine and I were splitting a pitcher of margaritas. So I'm taking this police auction car with a green trunk lid on a yellow car being held together with coat hangers, okay? So, and like, I was a little loosened up so I wouldn't stall the car out, and we're going from Prince George's County over to Montgomery County and Aspen Hill for a party, a work party, okay? And so my friend keeps yelling at me, and I wasn't listening to him. There's a sobriety checkpoint. There's a sobriety checkpoint ahead. So we get to the sobriety checkpoint. I stall it out, and the police had me get out of the car. I walked around, and he was just looking at the coat hanger hanging on the car, and he was worried about the registration. And the registration, for real, was back either in my office or the house. And all I had was a orange piece of paper from the DC government. And I'm just yelling at him, call it in, call it in. And what saved me was some idiot running the sobriety checkpoint. But when you're doing the sobriety checkpoint, they have you do the alphabet. And I went through the alphabet, and the police officer said, what about W's? I said, what about them? So that is what a world without W's would be like. All right, you've been a good audience. Thank you very much.
Y'all keep making noise for David Johnston. This is David's actually first